Hi, Dan. Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Danielle.
Yeah, you're welcome. I can see you're supporting Movember. You're going to keep that moustache after you finish November?
We'll see how popular it is. My wife wanted me to shave it immediately, but it's been fun so far. I'm looking forward to irritating my friends and family over the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States.
Yeah, I know. My husband did it many years ago, and I think people walked away from him on public transport because it was so scary. He's got very dark hair and it came right down his face, so he looked like a gangland member or something. But yours is very
Thanks.
impressive, so well done.
Thank you.
Where are you based in the US?
Mostly New York City. I've lived here the last 12 years or so. I'm from the Philadelphia area, a couple hours south.
Right. And did you manage to get a swim in this week yourself? I know you're busy with coaching.
Yeah. Pools have been difficult in New York City the last 18 months, but it's opening up a little more and everyone's finding a new routine. So I'm swimming a lot in the city for the first time in a while, and I'm really happy about that. So I
Yeah,
got a good swim in today, about 4,000 meters, and
great.
I feel like I can swim as much as I want. So things are good.
Awesome. Are there mainly indoor pools in New York?
Mainly there's some outdoor pools in the summertime through the New York Parks and Rec team. Other outdoor pools in the city are mostly like rooftop lounges that are kind of a C and B scene type of thing.
Right.
In my opinion, pools in New York City are harder to come by, and it's not the most accessible swimming city in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I visited there before, I went and did a session, 25 meter, and you had to sort of go down into the basement to find the swimming pool. So all quite enclosed.
Yeah, in the suburbs where I grew up, pools are a lot more common, and I was in the suburbs a little bit early on in the pandemic, and there's pools everywhere. Just kind of deciding where you wanted to go swim, and it was in the summertime, so outdoor was really nice. And I spent a lot of time in Budapest in Hungary with my wife and her family, and I feel like it's the pool capital of the world. There's just so many amazing pools in Hungary, and swim culture is super, like, just great. And same thing, it's where do we want to swim today, and a lot of beautiful locations.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that about Budapest. It looks beautiful. There's so many gorgeous pools there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's really nice. They invest well in that in those facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And what pool do you base yourself out of at the moment? Where you did your 4K?
I'm swimming at Riverbank State Park, which is a city operated facility. It's a 50-meter pool, 8 lanes.
Wow.
It's a nice space. They do a great job of taking care of it. They've been really awesome during this time, and it's about 2 miles from my apartment. I ride city bike to get down there, so I get a nice bike ride in along the Hudson River,
Nice.
and able to get a decent swim in and then ride back.
Oh, awesome. And do you swim with a squad at the moment, or are you just swimming by yourself?
I don't. I'm just swimming by myself. There's some camaraderie with some of the groups that meet there. So every now and then I might join someone for a set, but there's no formal team. And pool time for masters teams have been difficult too. I see some of them picking it back up, but their hours have been significantly reduced. I'm actually working on starting my own masters team, but it's been difficult to find pool time to rent. The
Right.
facilities that are open are still kind of they're still kind of shy about opening it up to additional teams and groups and coaches.
Yes. Yeah. What's happening with COVID in New York at the moment? Is it sort of subsiding, or what's your vaccination rate like there?
I should know the numbers. It's higher in New York than in other parts of the country. I don't want to misquote a number, but it's higher than the rest of the country for sure.
Yeah.
It seems to be stable. At least we're definitely reducing like deaths and hospitalizations. But I can't say for sure what it is. They just opened up to youth, so kids age 5 to 12. Booster shots are open to anyone interested in that now.
Yeah.
It's very accessible. It's free of cost in New York. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's hope it's all behind us, because it's been a rough 2 years for the whole world, really, hasn't it?
yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic, and I think we're finding a new way to navigate it. So
Yeah.
we're either going to live with it or put it behind us, one or the other.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So getting off a bit of a morbid topic there with COVID, For all our listeners, I wanted to start chatting about your work as a swim coach and a strength coach. I love that you combine both, and we'll talk about your Instagram in a minute as well. But tell us what led you to coaching.
What led me to coaching? I was a multi-sport athlete growing up and had just a really terrific experience. And I was always very passionate about strength training and nutrition. And I slowly just realized that I'd become a resource for my friends, my family, my teammates, and kind of the go-to person who was really investing time and energy into being smart about strength and nutrition piece, and combining that to be better at my sport, and ultimately really just focusing on swimming. And so, I don't know, maybe halfway through college, I decided that I wanted to get into coaching, but I wasn't sure what. I didn't know if I wanted to be a collegiate swim coach. I didn't know if I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach at a university or professional level. And then ultimately what I ended up getting into was the personal training world. So for the last, almost 15 years, I've been in the personal training industry working with people one-on-one. And for a while, it was just average Joes. It was everybody. I took a little bit of a break from swimming. I dabbled in it, but just needed a break after college. But then slowly realized I had a niche and a passion for coaching endurance athletes. So at first it was a lot of marathoners, and then it was triathletes. And then I realized I could really help swimmers be more efficient with strength and conditioning, and just smarter in general with programming. And there was a really awesome piece from coaching and the science of programming and the exercise science of it that I had some of growing up, but I own more now as a coach, and I want to share that with athletes. Mostly adult amateurs participating in Ironman, marathon, open water, channel swimming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure whether everyone listening has seen your Instagram, which is Daly, but I love the post that you put up with the movement, with the picture of the stroke, for instance, and then mirrored with an exercise. I think a lot of masters athletes have trouble sort of visualizing what kind of dry land things they'll do. Is that the kind of things that you recommend for swimmers that you work with one-on-one as well?
I do, yeah. I mean, they should definitely be taking advantage of strength training. I think it's so important. And I sense that so many of them don't do it. And even at the highest level, at the collegiate level, they have a dry land program, but maybe there's a strength coach, but he's more focused on some of the the bigger money sports like football and basketball in the US. And then some of the swimmers, they'll show up, but they don't put as much energy into it. I was grateful to have some decent strength coaches, and we were really smart about our shoulder program. And I just felt like particularly the sprinters were strong and they enjoyed it, and we could see the translation into the water. And then also doing some really fun things in the pool that were more resistance based. And then just learning the whole realm of coaching and just really getting into the strength training piece. And I just really saw I was able to connect those dots, and I want to be able to share that with other athletes. In some sense, they're not doing it at all, or it's not as structured and as programmed as it could be.
Yeah, I think that's a real problem with a lot of masters athletes, that they find that because they're working full time and they're squeezing in their swimming sessions around their work, I think that the strength training drops off a little bit, sort of in that sort of weekly sort of programming. How do you recommend that people get it in? Is it before they swim, on a different day? Sort of what do you recommend?
I want to work with them, but I want to make it efficient and easy. In fact, I had a call today with a marathon client who kind of let his strength training go to the wayside towards the end of the marathon program. And I was like, listen, even if you did 3 sets of 3 repetitions of your deadlift, and that's all you did, you would have felt better. You would have reduced some of the aches and pains that popped up. You would have run faster, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time.
Yeah.
And particularly in this new world we're living in, with the pandemic, you could get a kettlebell at home and do something very simple, very short. You don't have to leave your house. It could be in between meetings, calls, whatever it may be. But I just want to make it easy and kind of shape the path for them. It doesn't have to be 90 minutes of strength training. And you can still do a lot of what you want to be doing, but maybe you could be more efficient by strength training a little bit and cutting back on some of the volume of your swim or your endurance sport.
Yeah, absolutely. What sort of are the most common strength exercise that you would recommend? I mean, I know you mentioned the kettlebell. Everything with a kettlebell, or do you sort of use TRX straps? What kind of things do you recommend?
Well, I have experience using all those things. And again, I want to work with the individual and what they have experience with, what they're interested in. I'm a big fan of the kettlebell because it's so efficient. And I just feel like it's the perfect blend of mobility, strength, and power. And, 2 or 4 kettlebells in your home takes up such a small footprint. And, the kettlebell is referred to as the gym in your hand. It's just so versatile, even if you have one kettlebell. But they're also dynamic and can be intimidating. So the TRX straps can be interesting. And, there's ways to kind of maximize their potential in terms of repetitions and leverage. And it's really nice because you can throw it in a bag and take it with you. It's something that I travel with wherever I go.
Yeah.
So it all depends. Some people are going to gyms, some people are working out at home. We could start with body weight. Ultimately, we need to be able to scale this. I'm a big fan of strength training. So there needs to be some external load at some point. Maybe that's body weight and we just train power. It really all depends. But I guess to sum up the question is I'm a big fan of kettlebell training. And strength and power training. So whatever tools that we have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love some of the stuff you put up with cross-body sort of body engagement, because I think that's really important with swimming. And I think a lot of strength coaches don't realize that is because we're not always working in the same plane. What kind of exercise do you think is the best for that cross-body engagement for like freestyle backstroke?
The best? Oh man, I don't know, but I do think, when I was introduced to lifting weights, it was all single joint, single muscle exercises, a lot of machines. It was a bodybuilding type of culture influence. And we've just learned how integrated the body is and how we can load some of those cross-body connections. And then, swimming, running, throwing, kicking, it's all opposite hip, opposite shoulder through your core. I'm a big fan of the kettlebell arm bar, which is more of like a functional, like movement prep type exercise, but it involves rolling on the ground and rotating through your upper spine and moving your shoulders and loading your glutes and your core. You're not going to get super strong doing that, but to me, it's very functional. It could be a smart part of everybody's prep or recovery work.
Yeah.
I don't know what the ultimate crossbody exercise is. The kettlebell, the single kettlebell swing, single arm kettlebell swing, or the kettlebell snatch when it's appropriate for people. While you're not truly going crossbody, you're resisting that crossbody, which can be a very athletic example of that.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. Sorry to put you on the spot with that.
No, that's fine. I hope I don't go up to too much of a tangent on any of these.
No, not at all. I saw that one of the hot topics last week on your feed was talking about the underwater pool in freestyle, where the sort of debate between whether the fingers are together or apart. Where did you sort of land on that, and what's your thought with the athletes you work with?
I think ultimately your hand should be relaxed. So whatever that means to you, but a common flaw is just to really cup and be too tight and stiff. And then we see that translate into like poor wrist position, elbow, shoulder problems, elbow problems. But the science actually is very supportive of having a slightly open hand, and the physics of it. If that's the answer, is, you're grabbing more, you're actually creating more drag in the moment, which drag is typically a bad thing for swimmers, but you're creating more drag in the moment, which means you're catching and pushing more water.
Yes.
And the definitive answer, well, at least one study was suggesting your hand should be more together on the entry because it's more streamlined. But when you go to pull, your fingers should be slightly open and relaxed.
Yeah. I think that's a really hard concept for a lot of master swimmers to sort of get their head around, because it changes from the entry to the water to starting the pool. What about the thumb position? Are you do you advise that the thumb stays into the hand or out? Because I know that's always been a point of contention with people too.
For the same reasons, I would say slightly out. I was actually swimming in Budapest this summer, and I swim with my fingers slightly open, but my thumb is together, and it's just my habit. My stroke's not perfect, and everyone will see that. Actually, I put it out there all the time, but someone pointed out to me, it's like, hey, they saw me filming and they just gave me like unsolicited feedback, which was very helpful. It's like, I should open my thumb. And he was very descriptive about how it increased the surface area of my hand and would allow me to catch more water. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I coach that in other ways, but when I look at my stroke, my thumb is always kind of pinned to my palm.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's just an old habit.
I think it's a bit of a habit. It's what you pick up when you learn to swim. I mean, yeah, I'm very much a person who puts their thumb out, and if I have it in, it feels like I'm unbalanced. But I think it's a personal sort of feel of the water. That's what I always sort of learnt through my swimming years. Yeah. It's interesting though, isn't it?
It is. And, I think there's so much of swimming. There's so much. So ultimately, like, find what's going to give you the biggest return on improving.
Yeah.
And there are different techniques for different people and how you move and what your limitations are. And some of the best athletes in the world, the fastest athletes, are doing unconventional things that are not textbook. That might not necessarily be what everybody should be doing. We should still be learning the fundamentals and what the science supports, but also experience. And then ultimately landing on what's best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I know you were a high school swimmer and you swam in college at, was it Westchester University?
Yeah, I started at Fordham University here in the Bronx in New York City.
Yeah.
I swam there for 2 years, and then I transferred to Westchester University in Pennsylvania and finished my career there for 2.
Right. Wow. And how many years did you sort of have out of the water before you started in on your master's swimming journey?
Oh man, I'd have to really think about that. It wasn't out of the water completely, but definitely took a break and just really went down the strength training rabbit hole and wanted to learn a lot about that and just wanted to lift weights more. And I did a triathlon, I think in 2012, which was my first. And I actually escaped from Alcatraz. I swam across the San Francisco Bay.
Okay. Yep.
I think that was 2.5 miles or 1.5 miles. So an unconventional length for triathlon, but that was interesting. And then my uncle, who's a Triple Crown open water swimmer, actually maybe in 2011 asked if I wanted to swim a relay across the English Channel. And my
Okay.
first instinct was yes. And then as I thought about it more and my interest in swimming at the time, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to train for this. And also some of the elements, like, I don't know if I really want to do this right now. But that kind of sparked my interest in doing some 10Ks and some longer distances. I was a sprinter, but I kind of trained and supported him and participated in some of these longer events and then coached him for some of these events and started coaching more people. And now, like, I'm really interested in longer open water events, and I've done several 10Ks and various distances between. And I'd like to pursue some of the channel swims. I might swim around Manhattan Island this summer. I was deferred during 2020, but I'd like to revisit that and start some of these longer mental and physical challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've spoken to a few Triple Crown people that have come on the podcast, and one of them, one of my earlier guests, Rob Watkins, he loves that Manhattan or round Manhattan swim. 20 bridges, isn't it?
Yep, 20 bridges.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of my hometown. The water's comfortable. It's the fastest of the Triple Crown. It's tide assisted. It looks fun. I've done various distances all around the city and coached my uncle around Manhattan. So I feel like it's something I should check off.
Yeah, definitely. What's the water quality like?
Everyone asks, no matter, every time I get in, they say the water is the cleanest it's been in 100 years. There's a group I think called Riverkeeper that's they're advocates for water quality, and increasingly a lot of animals are coming back to the water, like even whales and dolphins and seals that we hadn't seen. So that, allegedly the water quality is better. They tend to reschedule races after big storms, but I think that's true even of like some of our nicer, larger bodies, oceans and other areas. But I think they're trying to improve it, and there's signs that it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think during COVID, with a lot less sort of movement around the place, where I noticed here in Melbourne, we swim down in Port Phillip Bay, and without the boats and the jet skis and the things that usually are there was a lot more wildlife, a lot more. There was dolphins, people were sighting them all the time, and unfortunately jellyfish as well. But there was a lot more sort of water life around, because they're not scared away by all the sounds, obviously, and the petrol fumes and everything else that goes with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pollution in the city, it was a busy shipping waterways, and just the sewage system, and it gets treated and kind of flushed back into that. So I don't know the extent of it, and there's probably some websites you can refer to when you dare to get into those waters, but it's you're actually not allowed to swim the waters around here unless there's a sanctioned event. And they're often monitoring that as well.
Yeah. And what pool masters events have you been in the last few years?
None, actually.
None.
No pool events. I did the Masters World Championships in 2017 in Budapest, and I I swam the 3K, which they ended up cutting to, I think, 2.5 because of the weather. And
Right.
that was really awesome. And I
Yeah.
should have done the pool events because ultimately I went and watched all my friends participate. And I was like, I want to get in now.
Yeah.
But I haven't been in the pool racing since college, just
Yeah.
open water. But I
Something.
want to get back to it. There's this growing passion for it, and I'm coaching a lot of it. So I'd like to look into it.
Yeah, absolutely. What I wanted to also cover with you is a bit about stretching. Sort of with the people that you work with, do you recommend that before or after training? Sort of, are there different types that you would recommend to someone before they're getting in swimming? What's your sort of thoughts on that?
I'm a big believer in assessing mobility and range of motion and making a decision whether or not you need to stretch at all. And so first and foremost, from a functional standpoint, your body should do certain things regardless of who you are. There's even a little difference to age and gender to some degree. I mean, we want to take those into consideration, but like you should be able to lift your arms up overhead 180 degrees and get into a good streamline and get into a good overhead position. And if you can't, there might be mobility strategies to get you there. Sometimes it's strength training strategies, sometimes it's a combination of both. So first and foremost, let's see what you do, what ranges of motion you don't have, and let's restore those maybe with mobility. And then once you have that, training in the ranges of motion that you want is a great way to maintain those. If you look at athletes who can get into some interesting positions doing a sport that they've done their whole life, but maybe can't do other things because they've never done those things, a lot of it, we kind of own the ranges of motion that we use on a regular basis. And then outside of that, maybe for recovery, I'm a bigger fan of like body work and some other like manual modalities, maybe some dynamic movements like yoga, dynamic stretching for mobility.
Yeah.
I'm not going to discourage it if people have time for it, but when we're pressed for time, we should spend a lot of time in the water swimming, sometimes strength training, and then addressing some of the functional stuff in between those with soft tissue, foam rolling, massage, some of the dynamic movements that I talked about.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of foam rolling and spiky ball.
Yeah, nice.
And good to travel with too. If you're moving around, you can always take that spiky ball with you.
Yeah, I keep a couple of trigger point balls in my travel bag too.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. I love the person who invented it.
Nice.
Yeah. And what advice would you have for a master swimmer getting back in the water and starting a training program? So you say you've had a big sort of break after COVID. How often would you advise someone to be back in training each week? And what type of training would you be getting them to do?
Depends on the goal and their training history and their background and how long they were out of it. Yeah, I don't think you could really get good at anything from learning a language to getting better at swimming if you're not doing it at least twice per week. And swimming is kind on the body in terms of being able to do it more frequently and being able to do more volume. I would also want that person strength training. There's, even if on the best swimming program and at your best swim fitness, there's some repetitive stresses and some imbalances that can happen with swimming. And if you're not offsetting that and kind of complementing it with complementary and reciprocal movements, there might be some imbalances that could, lead to aggravation, potential injury. So I don't know. I'd want that person lifting at least twice and swimming at least twice. In an ideal world, 3 and 3. And if they have a very specific swim goal, we'd have to talk about like what volume they really need to build up. If you're going to swim around Manhattan, for example, you might have to work up to 4 to 6 hour swims and some 10,000 meter workouts and swimming. Well, ultimately, it's how much time do you have. You might be able to get away with less, but more sometimes is better in the swimming space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously, if you're training for around Manhattan as opposed to 100-meter butterfly or whatever it might be, it's going to be completely different training. With those longer distance people you work with, are they doing pool sessions as well as open water training, or is it one or the other?
They are, and it really depends on what they have access to. I have some clients who almost only have access to open water, and they live in beautiful places with oceans or bodies of water they can swim in all the time whenever they want. It's safe and accessible. And some people are really comfortable in the water and just kind of like pool pedigree and spend most of their time in the pool, and then they just kind of translate that to some open water events, which to some degree was me for a while. But particularly over the last 18 months of the pandemic, I've been swimming a lot more outdoors and seeking it out and just really enjoying it. So it depends. Specificity is ultimately really important. So if you're going to do an open water event, You need to be in the conditions. You need to prepare for those conditions, the temperature of the water, the conditions of the water, how you're feeding, your exposure to other weather, wildlife, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you yourself are training for a 10K, what's your favorite sort of set that you do that sets you up for that 10K?
Oh man, I don't know if I have a favorite set. There's definitely some infamous sets like 100 hundreds, 10 by 1000, various breakdowns of that just to make it interesting and implementing in different types of equipment.
Yep.
I don't know if I have a particular favorite set.
What
Sorry?
would you do for those 100 hundreds? What time cycle would you set those on?
Depends on the season and where I'm at. I don't know. I don't know. Off the top of my head, maybe we do 100 of those on like a minute 30 for yards, and just try to make them all and keep going.
Yeah. Would you tend to take a break every 20 or so, or do you just swim that straight through?
I might get to a point where I could swim it straight through.
Yeah.
But initially, there could be some breaks. There could be some various intervals working in different equipment. It wouldn't start with 100. It would build up in a smart way, kind of maybe in like an undulating, rolling way.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you get started in swimming as a youngster? Like, what led you to the water?
I was a multi-sport athlete, just playing different sports every season. And I remember joining the summer swim team with a friend. We had a local awesome 50-meter pool in our neighborhood, and maybe 6 or 7 joined the age group summer swim team, which was it's very casual in the United States.
Right.
And it was just fun. I actually didn't do that well in swimming lessons. I tell the story all the time. I wasn't able to pass through some certain level of whatever the criteria was. And my parents and my friends' parents suggested we join the swim team. And I just kind of took off. I took to it. I was fit and athletic. And I think I learned the skills as it came. And then slowly got involved in winter swimming, but it was often combining that with other sports like basketball during the winter as well. And I don't know, around high school, I gave up all those other sports and just committed to swimming full time.
So in the high school system in the US, how do the swimming competitions work? Do you travel just within your sort of local area to other schools and do head-to-heads, or is it a carnival with lots of schools? How does that sort of work?
It depends. It's mostly head-to-head stuff. And I actually went to a school that didn't have a swim team at all. So we also have a club system in the US. So maybe you swim for your school, maybe you also swim for a club or just for your club.
Right.
I guess now that I think about it, it's been a little while. We do have invitationals, and I would travel to other states and compete with my club team, and it was an invitational with multiple squads or teams there at a time.
Right. Okay.
And then, of course, bigger regional meets and championships. You have people from all over I don't know, the Mid-Atlantic area, like your tri-state area, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because from the outside looking in, it always seems like the US has got a really strong high school system, which feeds into the college swimming system, which we just don't have that in Australia.
We do, yeah, it's very nice. In fact, a lot of my college teammates were international students who kind of had like a second career in swimming, getting a scholarship from Europe and other parts of the world to swim for a US college team.
Yeah.
And take advantage of our structure.
Yeah, for sure. And was Westchester a Div 1 NCAA, or what was the situation there?
Westchester's Division 2.
Yep.
Yeah, and Fordham was Division 1.
Right. Okay. So were you competing at All-American meets there with that team?
I was an All-American at Westchester University on one of our relay teams. But we actually had a really great team there, arguably faster than the team at Fordham. And we would compete at nationals every year, so schools from all over the country. And our guys' team at the time were often top 6 overall, and we have a lot of national champions on our team and All-Americans and some record holders. So it was a pretty awesome group. And going back to the international thing, we had a strong international team, a lot of European swimmers and some world-class people.
Wow. And who's the sort of the best coach you've ever worked with yourself?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot. A lot of great coaches, actually, but I'd probably say my high school coach. I got a lot of individual attention from my high school coach at my local club. a big influence on my swimming. And there were times where maybe I thought I wanted to give it up. It's not the most social sport, or it's not the most interesting sport. So it really has to be for you. And I gave up a lot of fun ball sports that were very social and more glamorous, but
Yeah.
I kind of saw it as a route to get a scholarship to college. And he was very supportive of that, and a former college swimmer as well. And kind of helped me navigate that and just get through the angst of high school, and use swimming as kind of an outlet for that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you hit the water yourself, what sort of springs to mind first thing that goes through your mind when you hit the water and you go underneath? Because I know a lot of people have special relationships with that.
Yeah, it's more of a love for it than ever before. I mean, there was a time, like I'm sure you've had mornings. It's 6 a.m. The water's cold. It's like, why am I doing this? And that's a large part of like your age group swimming career. But today I was just thinking how lucky I was. Actually, I swam midday, that I can break away from my job and go swimming. And to some degree, my career is kind of centered around maintaining this fitness and doing it. And I just get to be at a great facility that I can ride my bike to and go swimming almost as long as I want. And my job is staying fit and getting to swim.
Yeah. I think it sounds like a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Terrific.
And not in a laborious way. I don't feel a lot of pressure or to like compete or be successful at it. I just get to do it. And there's always things that you can improve, like with yourself. And it's fun. I feel lucky that I can do it.
And what's your mindset when you're swimming? Do you sort of clear your mind, or do you think through your problems? Like, what are you thinking when you're going down each lap?
It varies. At times it can be a way to clear your head. I certainly have, I think I did like 4 1000s the day before, and it just kind of a way to kind of zone out and get into a rhythm. And but other times I'm very focused. I'm very competitive. So even if I don't know, even if I'm not particularly fast at the moment or fit or being like really competitive, I'm just thinking of like how I can prepare for that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my technique a lot. I try to have a focus for the set, with whether it's equipment, a drill, technique. And I'm thinking about events that could be interesting and motivating.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you big on stroke counts? Do you count your strokes as you go?
I do a lot of that. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I am. I was going to say that I lean towards a lower stroke count. I don't swim at a particularly high tempo.
Yep.
I guess I do when I sprint, but I can get away with a very low stroke rate. So I think in a way it's a strength, but maybe also a crutch at times. But yeah, I do a lot of like distance per stroke and counting strokes, and I can get away with a low stroke count for a while.
Yeah. And are you someone who enjoys kick or pull more? What's sort of in your bag of tricks?
I'm more of a puller, upper body dominant, which is interesting actually, because I'm pretty lower body strength athlete, but I have a pretty decent 2-beat kick and can get away with the pulling.
Yeah.
I've been forcing myself a lot lately to do 6-beat kick and work that's been a big focus actually of my sets, of just doing the set with a 6-beat kick, a constant kick.
Yeah. And do you use sort of snorkel, paddles, parachute, those kind of toys as well?
I like all the toys. The staples are paddles, fins, buoy. I've been getting away from the kickboard. I'm not against it, but doing more streamlined kicking. I have a snorkel, but I don't love it lately. But I want to use it more. A new toy that I've been using increasingly more in my professional career is a tempo trainer. So getting back to stroke rate and tempo and setting that to specific stroke rates. I love parachutes. I love the resistance band, whether you're swimming against it or swimming with a resisted or the bungee aid. And all this new stuff coming out. I'm happy to play with any of the toys.
Yeah, they're fun to play with. With the resistance band, do you when you put yourself on that, do you then swim without it straight away and sort of use the advantage that you get from that no resistance, if that makes sense?
I do, yeah. In the strength world, we call that potentiation, but when you can kind of overload yourself and then take that away, that's actually a pretty amazing performance technique. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of those hacks, taking a lot of the hacks from the strength world and applying it to swim. So yeah, doing some really heavy resisted, whatever it is, big paddles, a band, and then taking that away, and you kind of have this overspeed, or at least you feel like you have that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the whole principle behind fins as well, getting that sort of speed in the water that you can't normally sort of replicate, and taking them off and being able to swim with it. or try and replicate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful.
I think it's a really good training tool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give you a quick, I call it the fast five. It's a new thing I'm doing. I'm gonna fire 5 questions at you. You can just give me sort of 1 or 2 word answers. They're not tricky or anything. Just to get a bit of a snapshot about your swimming. So first
I'm not that fast. I'm fast in the water. Let's see if I'm fast in the water.
You've got time to think. Don't worry.
Yeah, cool.
Favorite pool?
Right now it's Duna Arena in Budapest.
Ah, beautiful. Favorite stroke?
Ooh, probably breaststroke.
Breaststroke.
I was a breaststroker.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Because now
we didn't talk about that at all.
Long distance. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Favorite distance?
I was 50 freestyle, but now I'm doing 10Ks.
Yeah, it's a bit of a change. Favorite pre-race meal?
Probably oatmeal.
Ah, good. Any additions to the oatmeal, or do you just have it straight?
Cinnamon and either honey or peanut butter.
Ooh,
or both.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah.
And morning or afternoon training?
It varies. It really varies. I talk about this with clients all the time.
Yep.
Right now it's been midday.
Yes, that's lucky.
I don't want to get up in the dark anymore actually and swim in the cold, so
yeah,
midday
for you. That's fine. Let's talk about that breaststroke. So were you a 50, 100 or 200 breaststroke, or did you do all 3?
I did the 100 and 200, and ultimately the 200 might have been my best event. Maybe not. I had some decent 100-meter on the relay. And it actually varied because I also swam 100-meter butterfly, and I felt like the breaststroke butterfly would go back and forth. And then out of nowhere, because we swim so much volume and freestyle, I had this 50 that, you just surprise yourself. And then I ultimately, collegiately, my best event was the 50 freestyle, but I had a good 100, 200 breast and 100 fly.
Right. Wow. That's great. And how did you put together a 200 breaststroke? I know you do yards over there for college. How did you swim what was your race plan for a 200 breaststroke?
It's been forever ago. Going back to stroke count.
Yeah.
Probably trying to really hold like 6 strokes per length for 25 yards. I have a really great pull out. I was strong again. So from what I've seen or read, breaststroke is often described as the most muscular stroke. So I had a really good like squat and lower body. So my kick, and good pull out or, pull up in the gym.
Yeah.
So low stroke count, big glide. And I've actually been really interested in Adam Peaty, probably the whole world is, but just his stroke rate and also his strength.
Yes.
And, I had a lot of good coaching growing up, to go off on a bit of a tangent, but we didn't have underwater cameras so much. Like at one point in college, we had this submarine pipe with like a VHS cassette tape, and then we would watch it. It's like, I don't know what we're looking at right now. So we didn't have so much of the science of stroke and technique. We did some good training, but I just know a lot more now with stroke rate and time and trying to find the sweet spot for what's best for you. And an analogy is used in swimming a lot is some people are gliders and some people are helicopters, and the gliders are going to tend to be a lower stroke rate, glide more in between strokes. They can kind of take a pause in between that rate, and helicopters kind of need to be spinning the whole time so that they can propel themselves. And everyone's a little different, and I think it's interesting to find what's best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, you watch Adam Peaty's kick, and it's completely different. It's almost like a butterfly kick, isn't it? The way he whips his feet back, and it's really bring breaststroke to a whole new, or it has brought breaststroke to a whole new level. But I think those underwater cameras, like you mentioned, are just a wonderful step forward for the sport of swimming. Yeah.
We're just learning so much. So much has changed since I was in the pool, and I just want to bring that to coaching. And I still feel like there's a lot of fitness and youth in what I'm doing. So I'm able to bring that to some of what I'm doing to the extent that I have time and passion for it. We're just learning so much is changing, and people are bucking those trends or are the tradition of what we used to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back to something you mentioned before, which was that you were very strong at pull-ups. A lot of master swimmers can't do one pull-up. I can't myself. How is that how can you help someone with progression to get to that point?
This actually might be a post next week.
Good.
It's probably the ultimate strength exercise, at least for freestyle and backstroke, which are arguably more upper body dominant.
Yeah.
Your pull in swimming is the most propulsive in freestyle and backstroke. First, when people tell me that, I ask them to tell me about their pull-up program, and chances are they're not on one, or they haven't been on one at least in a while.
Yeah.
And the easy way to do that is to work the negative portion, or the eccentric portion of the pull-up, where you kind of get to the top however you can, whether you jump or you step up and then lower yourself nice and slow.
Yeah.
That's a really terrific way to get better at pull-ups or push-ups.
Yeah.
Band assisted is another way, machine assisted. But you need to get on a program, and then ultimately that needs to steer towards strength. So weighting those pull-ups or whatever that strength is for you, and keeping the reps lower, which, by the way, lower volume is really complementary to swimming and how high volume it is. And it's just a great way to get strong. You don't have to do a lot of reps, a lot of time in the gym, but neurally, just teaching your fast twitch fibers to be strong and fast and quick, really translates to the water.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I think a lot of master swimmers need to put that in their program. The pull up. Yeah.
Maybe that's number one. People, and or you could start with a cable pull down. You work with what your strength is, but a lot of people they'd surprise themselves if you just work on it a little bit. I think it's in everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Food for thought.
Yeah.
Dan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your insight into coaching and strength training and your swimming journey. It's been lovely connecting with you. And I encourage everyone to have a look at your wonderful Instagram page, because I pick up a lot of tips from there as well. It's terrific.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, it was fun chatting. I'm happy to do it. Great questions. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, take care.
You too.